Hey everybody, welcome to the uncomMEN podcast. Josh here, and we have a special featured guest, my little brother, who's big and strong and muscular, Matt Pacheco here.
Hey friends.
Today's topic is going to be about self-care. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on right now, which is why Chris, as you see here on the iPad, is not physically present. He's virtually present. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here with us physically, not because he's unhealthy. He's certainly healthy, but we're just doing hashtag our part, okay, to make sure that everybody is staying healthy. So he's taking care of his family. He's got a couple of sick kiddos, so he will be back as soon as possible, physically, not just on the computer. But thank God that technology is the way that it is, that you can still see Chris right here. And so we're going to go ahead and start having a quick conversation about, the current circumstances as well that we are all embracing and some of us are struggling through. But also we want to give you guys some tips to be helpful for what you're going through right now, as far as many of you switching to work from home. Chris is going through that change now. I've been working from home with my company for the past 6 months for Progressive. My brother, he does real estate sales, and so he's been working from home, and we have some tips that'll help you to not only help with stress, but to be successful in all that you're doing right now. Chris, did you want to help us get started?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what our focus today in helping everybody is really kind of focusing on your self-health, right? That's before you can kind of focus on helping anybody else, you've got to kind of rechannel that positive energy and really take care of yourself. And so, we wanted to kind of discuss with you all some tips on self-care. And so when I talked to Josh earlier this week about self-care, I said, hey, Josh, tell me more about that, because to me, self-care is, showers. It's hygiene, those kinds of things are what I kind of thought of. And Josh was coming from more of a spiritual and mental health kind of self-care. So Josh, you want to get on some of those really great tips that you shared with me?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, just to piggyback off of what you said, Chris, part of it is hygiene, like showering. So some of those simple things that can get away from us, anybody listening to this, if you've got a family, like for me in the mornings, I started working from home when I'm walking the dog and then starting clocking in. Sometimes that shower slipped away. I didn't get a chance to do that. And so maybe break time or lunchtime or the end of the day at night before I go to bed. And so what we'd like to make sure that you guys do is create a schedule. Right now things are kind of different. You might not feel like you're in control. We've talked about control in the past podcasts. And so something to help you all feel control is to write a schedule out. Make that schedule to where you do get that shower in the morning, that you do start your day with prayer, okay? That you're breathing, that you're taking the time to not just jumping right onto your phone and jumping on Facebook and looking at everything else that you can't control, okay? Maybe just take the first 30 minutes and you look at the time, you look at the dates, but you're not looking at all these notifications. Then you're reacting, instead of having control over your day and really looking at what you can do to make yourself better for others, including yourself, that's the biggest thing. Start a schedule for yourself, make yourself some coffee type of thing, if that's what you like to do, or juice, whatever you prefer. I'm a coffee guy. I think we're all coffee guys here. And so that's the biggest thing too. But to piggyback off of that, when my brother and I were talking about that was something that he shared with me, that he was a big jump right, wake up, go to email. And something unique that I learned that he does with his wife is they actually have a devotional. Matt, did you want to share about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, kind of going off of what you said first, when Josh told me the subject, first thing I thought was, I don't do face scrubs and those kind of things,
Exactly.
But as he continued to dive in with me on where he was coming from, it absolutely makes sense. I think it's so valid. And I literally spent probably years going into email first thing in the morning, because being self-employed and being in the real estate industry, it's very easy. Get up in the morning, didn't matter if it was 5 or 6, there were already emails waiting. And so that automatically shifts your mindset. And when you do that, you end up going into an area, again, like Josh said, things that are out of your control. And before you even propelled yourself to get ready for your day, you're in the defense mode. And so, when we made that decision to go into devotionals every morning, it drastically shifted our mindset, our self, well-being, And so what we do is we just started with a Bible study together where we sometimes go through it together, but more often than not, we'll be going through it separately depending on the time that we wake up. But then it gives us a chance to not only dive in to our faith, to work on ourselves, that now we're starting to fill ourselves up and be ready to take on the challenges that day. Because in the end, we're giving, and which is important. You're giving of yourself to everyone you interact with every single day. And you can't give what you don't have. And if you only have so much in that bucket that you're pouring out, you've got to feed it back in. And so that's, I think, that important thing of self-care.
Yeah, that's huge. What Matt just said. Go ahead, Chris.
It's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. This is all new territory for a lot of people. Like you mentioned, Josh. I mean, you're kind of betting into working from home. And I'm used to that social interaction, that outside sales and networking, and the ability to go into other people's offices, other people's environment, and interact and kind of absorb the atmosphere. And I'm having to readjust. I mean, it's a challenge for me. I can only imagine for several people out there, right? What do you do? And so we had a sales meeting this morning, and part of that was feedback from all the other salespeople is how are they mentally dealing with having to be home, because it is a mental challenge. It is very strenuous, right? A lot of their feedback was, the utilization of their time was, well, now I just roll out of bed and I can just work from my computer from my bed.
Yeah, that's a perk. It is nice.
Well, and it sounds great.
But it's also challenging, right? And I think Matt's going to go there, right? It's nice, but it also develops that kind of slumpy routine.
Sure.
Right? Kind of negative. You're going kind of down almost a depressionary state a little bit, right? Because then how do you see the sun? Where do you get your vitamin D from, right? What do you do the rest of the day? And I shared with you, Josh, when we were talking about the topic, how I struggled, right? I'm out of my element. I'm not in my routine. Right. Normally, I struggled daily to find time and to make time to take a shower. Yeah. Right? And so, and that's, I can imagine how much of a struggle that is. And so, like you and Matt both said, it's pivotal to make a schedule that is accustomed to your comfortable habits, right? Some positive elements in the schedule are super key in a time like this, especially to your mental health. Josh, you tagged me and Matt in a video today that discussed that. Do you guys want to get on that? That was a super positive message.
So Trent Shelton's been one of my inspirations for this type of thing. And he's just all about giving. If you know who Trent Shelton is, you should follow him. Now, this is a former NFL player, okay? Literally was catching touchdowns from, the mighty Peyton Manning. He played for the Indianapolis Colts, but the business was rough for him. He wasn't selected to really be in the NFL for very long. And then he went down a road of depression, actually. And that was because he had a friend commit suicide. And I think we've all shared that situation when a loved one dies, it changes the way you think, And so with that said, like you said something about depression, you know what I mean? So that's part of our message to you. If anybody's feeling like that, first off, you're not alone. You need to start getting some help, okay? Exactly, okay? And two, that message that Trent Shelton was talking about was, yes, the coronavirus is a virus. Yes, it's contagious, but guess what also is contagious? Positivity, helping others, showing love, having faith, but also being full of fear. That's going to be contagious, Running around feeling like you're in a panic, that's contagious. And so the challenge that Trent Shelton was sharing was controlling your mind, guys, protecting your peace. Okay, so like we got a chance to go take our kids for a hike today, like you said, Chris, about the getting some vitamin D, getting some fresh air, and it was a struggle. It was hard because all these things going on, and I trying to almost find excuses to not go. And my brother shared things like, I think it's really important that I get my kids out. I'd love for you to go. And thank God he did that because we went and had a phenomenal time. It was incredible. I've never seen this part. It was like being in the mountains. And here in Colorado Springs, we're in Colorado Springs, Chris is in Pueblo right now. And it was like being in the mountains, but you're not in the mountains. You're super close to the city, but we were out there protecting our peace. You know what I mean? We were getting fresh air. And this is all before the governor made his announcements over the current, stay-at-home situation. It's not martial law. It's not shelter in place. Just do the right thing. Hashtag do your part. And that's why Chris is on video. We're doing our part. Okay, guys? And so in a nutshell, that's what Trent Shelton was talking about. And that's what I want to share with my brothers right here, was because that's what we're trying to do for each and every one of you. Time and time again, we talk about we want this to be valuable to you. There's a lot of negativity in there, and so we ask you to share. We ask you to like. We ask you to subscribe, We're looking to help others. If there's somebody that you feel like would benefit from this message, tag them in this post. Send it to them in a text message. Okay, guys?
And you hit on something really, really, really pivotal, I think, Josh, for right now. And Matt, you said it earlier, how contagious that positivity is, right? And a lot of us men, and even the women that are tuning in and that are watching and subscribing, we are leaders in our household.
Right.
And our attitudes and the way that we deal with this, especially during so-called crisis times like this,
right.
and worrisome times like this, and times when we don't know a lot of the answer, the way that we handle that, the way that we deal with that, the way that our energy is in our households during this time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, you just said energy. That makes a difference too.
Well, and like you said, as the leader of your house, we're called to be priests and kings of our home, right? And so if you imagine the leaders of our country, right, whoever is in leadership in whatever you're doing, that calling of being priest and king of your home puts you at that ultimate level of where you have to maintain that balance, that order, and that positivity and moving forward in those processes. So, having that, and, like we said, it's contagious. That positive mental attitude, that's what you control. We spend so much time focusing on what we can't control. And again, that's kind of going back to what we talked about, schedules, right? That gives you that layer of control. And if you think before you were in any situation, this may be the first time someone's dealt with anything like this, being, with, a major illness or something going like this in our country or their home. But I'll tell you, it won't be the last thing in your life that becomes chaos. Chaos is going to happen. But how do we make order of that chaos? It's out of those things that we have control. And so having that self-awareness is key. If you don't have that and you can't see where you are and how you step forward in the right direction, keep on that positive path, that you can derail so easily. And having things like this podcast, like other podcasts, like audiobooks, you have to feed your mind, you have to feed your soul. What comes in is going to come out. And if all you're putting in is the news, we know what the news looks like right now. And even if this isn't going on, we know what the news looks like regularly. If that's all you're putting in and you're not giving yourself some positivity coming in, because you may not be fortunate to have great people like this around you that you can share positive things with. That means you got to go find them for one. Because you are in life based on the 5 people you associate with and the books that you read. Those major things in your life are going to determine where you end up long term. So you've got to keep that input. You've got to keep that positive input and keep it changing.
And you said that super, super well with what limited content we're able to absorb in our households now. And thank God for technology and different ways that we can actually get and receive media. But the messages that are out there, if we, like you said, man, you said it so well. If you don't feed yourself positivity or associate your mind and your body and your soul with positivity, how easy is that to get caught up with all this negative stuff that we're actually just being spoon-fed on a daily. Right? It's so easy to jump on that train of negativity and worrisome and panic and it's so much harder for us, I think, to take the time to step aside, move that aside, and feed ourselves that positivity if you don't already have that. That's such an important key when you're developing that schedule and that's kind of a good segue into the next part that I want to talk about. But I want to thank you, Josh, for encouraging me to watch Governor's address, today's address, talking about his executive order. And if you haven't watched the whole thing, I encourage you to do so because I love his delivery. on that address, because it wasn't coming from a state of panic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was very preventative. It was very calm. It was very direct. But I didn't feel insecure. I didn't feel like we were in a bad place as a state, as a country. I felt like, hey, man, like, we're gonna get through this. It's gonna be all right.
Make more tacos.
Yeah. Then more tacos, right? And so I think
I was pleased with his delivery too.
Yeah, and using that in our environments, in our homes, with our families, that's super key. But you know, in turning the corner a little bit, it's super important to again separate yourself from even sometimes your family and your day-to-day business, as hard as it might be, and really take time for yourself. And Josh, you had some, and Matt, you did too, had some great tips when you're taking that alone time, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour or so, you know, those kinds of things that you can do. You said earlier, Josh, is just do some breathing exercises, you know.
Yeah, breathing is huge. Sometimes when we're stressed, like that can be that mental shift for you, because often we lack oxygen. And I've been in that stressful situation where like literally you're just not breathing. But as a coach, you know, and as an athlete, you start to learn the benefits of breathing, or you get side aches and like there's all sorts of negative things about it. But then transitioning that mindset of an athlete into your everyday life type of thing. So those of you that are athletes, you know, use that. You know, for me, not only prayer happens in the morning, but also I stretch. I foam roll, okay? I walk my dog in the morning. I watch the sunrise. You know, I love getting up early. I don't get up as early as I used to, but for about a year and a half, my brother and I were working in the morning, about 5:30 in the morning, rain, wind, snow, didn't matter. I had his butt out there, and we were training in the gym, you know? And I got to give a shout out to Matt Smith. He got me on that habit when I was the general manager for his gym, and we did that twice a week. And then before I knew it, you know, the stressors we were going through when we were unfortunately losing our brother at the time to ALS, and we'll talk about that in another podcast, but he's also a motivator for this as well. But with that helped us with the stressors in our life during that time, you know. So exercise is huge, guys, and just kind of go back to what Trent Shelton was talking about. That has to happen, you know. Like you guys may have seen a push-up challenge is taking place right now, and we might do that here at the end. We might all do some push-ups here in just a moment, because we want to promote that movement, guys. If you're not moving, like if you're just sitting in your couch, like you said, Chris, and just on your computer, you're not moving, you're not getting that vitamin D, your blood's not pumping, and you're gonna feel blue, you're gonna feel depressed. But naturally our body's designed to create endorphins when you move, when you do exercise, when you go for a walk, when you breathe. So everybody just take a deep breath right now, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and then get some whiskey and hang out with a couple of friends, social distancing wise, if you need to. Salud. Okay?
And you know, we laugh about it, but it's you know what, that in itself is a challenge, right? I mean, I'm blessed to have my family around me all day long, on a daily basis now that I'm at home. And so that might be an excuse that I use, right? Well, my family's home. I don't really have a place for myself. So it's super important right now, especially for you to help your family and help yourself create your own space in your house.
Yep. That's a huge message. Create your own space. Write it down. If anybody's taking notes, create your own space.
Whether that's in the corner of your living room, at your dining room table, in your garage, in your car, for crying out loud. I mean, any small space where you can find solitude, right?
Yeah, we did that today, Chris. You know that.
Yeah, we did.
Right here in my brother's garage. America.
Yeah. USA. You know, Chris, I think though that's huge, and there's you know what you're talking about is boundaries, right? You know, you need to create boundaries in your life, and there's this great book called Boundaries. I can't remember the author. I'm sure we can get it and put it in the
we'll put it in the links in the comments.
But it's a great book called Boundaries, and you know, when you think about it, boundaries are important. Boundaries have been around since the beginning of time.
Yeah, think of sports too.
Yeah. We deal with them in sports. We deal with them. We have borders of our state. We have fences in our yards. You know, and so creating boundaries, it's not just about those, but it's going to that side that you were talking about at home, in life, in business. So what you do is you create those boundaries. Like right now, we've created a boundary with our families because we're doing this moment, right? But you think of in business and in life. you have to create boundaries with your clients. You have to create boundaries, you know, with your employer. Many people get to go to work and leave work and boom, it's done. But for some of us, work doesn't stop when the normal 5 o'clock hour stops. And so having those boundaries and times that you know that you've taken that moment and this is where you are at this moment. And so that can be because you're stepping out of that work mode and now you're in dad mode, right? Or you're in husband mode, you're in wife mode. Whatever that next step is, you want to be 100% at that moment. And I'm guilty. Josh has seen me. I'm guilty of not being that. I've been with my family and I've still dealing with a client and taking care of those, and we're blessed to be able to do that and to serve those people. But you don't want to not serve your loved ones at the same time.
Right.
And so, I'm not saying to let go of everything, but I'm saying if you imagine there's a line, and on this area is whatever's going on in life. This could be family, this could be over here, this could be work. And what you do is you move in and out of those spaces. You're 100% in that business mode, then you veer over here, and now you're 100% in that family mode, or vice versa. Whatever you need to separate from to create that boundary. And sometimes it's going to cross over.
Yeah.
We're human.
Right.
It's going to happen. But if you try and do that, you can truly dive into those relationships and make them so much deeper and stronger. And you'll see that, people with work, clients, family, you'll see how deep those relationships can go and how strong they'll be. And really all you've done is just try and truly be there in that moment, no matter which side you're at.
Yeah, and
Well, and I think I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I think part of what you're getting to a point is communication, right? And when you talked about boundaries in our workplace and boundaries here and there, a lot of that habitually is done for us, right? We attribute those boundaries in the workplace and in organizations as policy.
Yes.
Those policies are already written, right? And so we're not used to communicating what those boundaries are because they're already there. They're already in place. When you step in that door, the boundaries are already created. You have a cubicle, you have a desk, you have your own phone, you have policies in place that don't disrupt that. When you're at home and you pull yourself out of those policies and you incorporate kids and you incorporate family and stay-at-home parents and out-of-the-box routine that we're not prepared to take, it comes down to communication. And we'll talk more about healthy communication in a whole other podcast. But what we have the opportunity to do now is communicate with our environment what those boundaries are healthily, right? So my kids are running around. Right now they're not doing schoolwork. They don't have a justified routine, and so they need something. I have to get up and get it for them for the most part, right? So what we've talked about is when I'm sitting at my desk, which has now become the kitchen table of my house, they just put their hand on my shoulder and they just wait for my response. My response is either to acknowledge their presence there or to put my hand on theirs, and then we can have a conversation that way, because they can't really see if I'm on the phone, if I'm on my Bluetooth, or if I'm in the middle of an email. It's just a way of us establishing those boundaries and that mutual respect. And the same thing, they've asked me, hey, Dad, will you not barge in my door because it scares me? Just open my door. And so it's little things like that we have to learn to communicate to each other and communicate healthily in our environment in order for us to establish those boundaries.
Yeah. And I think the trick on that, Chris, and just a suggestion for those looking for tips, is write that down. Okay? Like, you have to identify that for yourself. So Chris, I've been through that. Matt's been through that as well. So I know there's others that are going through that. But you have to recognize it, identify it. So like as coaches or as leaders, you got to see what is the problem, what is the solution, right? So making that communication, write it down. Okay, this needs this, and what we did, Matt motivated me, his daughter actually, he created a schedule. Because like you said, Chris, things are out of whack a little bit, And so that's what I did too. We created a schedule with my family. So yes, it's spring break, but they had all last week off, and I'm still working. My schedule's still set per policy, etc. We got some different stuff happening with our salon, so that's opening up some different opportunities, okay? There's always a silver lining, but I would encourage you all to identify that so that way you can have a healthy conversation to promote self-care for your family and yourself. Because when you can control that and talk to your significant other and your family and your children, or if it's just an internal dialogue with yourself, if you don't have, we all have, we have children and fiancés and wives, so we got to make sure that everything's understood. Just like Matt mentioned earlier, we had to organize this time and set it aside. So this is intentional so that we can pour value into each and every one of you. So we encourage you and challenge you to identify those things to help with self-care, and little things too. Like Chris and I are calendar junkies, and I put little things in there like cut my kids' fingernails. Like if I look at mine, my fingernails need to be cut, and I know my sons probably do too. You know what I mean? And so my daughter's better at that, but my sons aren't. Okay? Cleaning your ears, okay, guys? Like you said, showers, like that. Sometimes that is the one of the craziest things I get. I don't know if anybody else gets enlightening moments from the Holy Spirit when you're in the shower. The water is so healing that I get revelations that occur in the shower, And so, like, make
all
sure that
the
you
best
guys do
ideas
that.
come to you when you're somewhere in the bathroom.
Somewhere in the bathroom.
That is where
the bathroom.
But so I want to.
Chris,
I want
to
to
the bathroom.
Okay, so so I want to piggyback off that. There was something that you said in there, and the word was intentional. So I'm gonna pull a Josh here. Write that down, because that has been our word for this year. Intentional. Because when you think of things as intentional, if you want to be intentional in everything you're doing, you're probably going to think a little more carefully before you make those moves, before you make that purchase, before you run to the store for this, before you make that phone call. You might think a little bit more about what you're going to say. And so being intentional with those moments, that can be intentional with conversations, intentional with relationships. Right now, we've got this amazing tool. People say they want to see a miracle. This is a miracle that we can do this, that we have this technology to be here. We're being intentional now with family, with friends. How many times did you FaceTime someone before people had to stay at home? We FaceTime family members and friends now daily.
Daily, yeah.
Where before it might have been a quick text. Hey, how's it going? See the game? There's no games on right now. What game did you see? so guess what?
Yeah.
Your conversations now are going to be more intentional, and they're going to be deeper. And when you dive deeper, you are caring for yourself and you're caring for others.
Well said. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
very well said. And I think part of being intentional is also kind of giving a part of yourself to others during this time. I think that's super, super key in staying mentally and physically and spiritually healthy, is giving some of your time to other people, whether that's giving to charity, giving more of your time to your kids, your significant other family members, maybe that aren't close to you. Just reaching out and being something or doing something a little bit extra for somebody else that might need, or reconnecting with your significant others and working on your relationship a little bit more. Those kinds of things are pivotal right now.
That's huge. Chris, when you said something there that reminded me that something I wanted to talk a little bit about today. Locally in Pueblo, there is an individual that recently lost their life due to domestic violence, and it's really impacted a lot of people that we know. And so we're blessed that we have partners that we love and trust, and we've been through our trials and we still go through those, but never to the extent of, fortunately, that there's abuse occurring, And so part of what we wanted to kind of touch on was also making sure that you're getting help if that's the case. But I can't just imagine, like, when people are quarantined right now, we've already had challenges just with our loved ones, and we love them, but I can't imagine living in fear. Like if someone, whatever end it, if you're being abused as a male or female, because it can happen either ways. It's commonly misconstrued that it's only just the female, but it's not. It can always be the other way too, unfortunately. But like my heart just goes out to anybody that might be going through something like that. And I just want to encourage you to step out, and get some help. There's plenty of opportunities and awareness, and sometimes it just takes that decision. It's a choice to step out. And there's people that need help. They want to help too. There's churches. There's programs. It's called Nicole's Army. I've seen a lot of stuff on there. There's a couple people that have been putting a lot of good stuff in there. If you guys can chime in if you're in the local area, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there that you can do. So again, with that, with taking care of yourself, if you're going through that, we just encourage you to step out, to not live in fear. God doesn't want that for you, okay? And yes, I'm sure you probably love this person, but they might need help. Like we're talking about, being healthy, and maybe this individual has to work on themselves, or maybe you need to work on yourself. Sometimes we need to be pruned, as we're all growing, and occasionally we have to be trimmed, and that's painful at times for us to grow, to become a beautiful, long-lasting structure, okay? And so with that, we'll talk more in depth on relationships, but like as far as mental health and self-care, guys, like if you're going through that, speak out, okay?
There's something that Josh mentioned there is that, we're not given a spirit of fear. And so no matter what you're going through, when we get back to the area of self-care, remember the word joy. No one can steal your joy. And if you're going through something like that, it's very easy to understand how you can be hurt. And you can be hurt in many ways. It doesn't have to just be physical. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just a spouse. It can be the wrong type of friends, the wrong type of people that you're associating with. And so know that you control that portion of your joy. And by doing that, that means in that self-talk, with that self-care, and like Josh talked about pruning, sometimes you may need to prune people out of your life.
You have to love them from a distance.
Yes.
Because you can still love them, and Shelton talks about that. Like, there's a nice way to get people that you love in a distance. You love them from a distance, but you gotta protect what's yours, type of thing,
Yeah, that's something that my fiance and I learned in counseling a great deal. Which, by the way, I've said it before. Counseling is amazing for relationships. Nobody should fear counseling. It's the best thing that her and I could have ever done for each other, for ourselves. You can't emphasize that enough. It's a version of asking for help.
Yes.
But it's super important. We haven't gone through marriage counseling classes for our wedding yet, but we are so excited to do that because
that's super cool.
So many cool things, about each other. So not to go too far off of a tangent, but in counseling, in some of those sessions, we've learned about eliminating and making some of those tough decisions, and eliminating that negativity, and that's so important, guys. Right now, and making those. I know sometimes they're tough decisions. It may be a parent, it may be in-laws, it may be aunts, uncles that are just strenuous with negativity, or they're getting caught up in that negativity, and all you can do is pray for the people and say, look, this is my bubble of positivity. I can't let anything of negative pierce that bubble for my family's sake, for my safety, my mental health awareness. So sometimes you have to make those tough decisions, but those decisions are super important, especially in a time like this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. And sometimes too, Chris, like what you just said there, that takes courage. Some people lack that courage to say those words. You know what I mean? So occasionally, I'm a firm believer in actions speak louder than words. People talk and talk and talk, but what are you doing? So like if that's somebody that that isn't going to hear you, you just might not have to say anything. You just might need to just separate yourself.
Yep.
And Josh, that's a perfect way to kind of close things out. Is we're all in this together, right? This is a team effort.
Yeah.
And with the governor's address, the whole idea of locking everybody in their homes, he's asking the entire state to come together as one and do this as a team, do this as individuals, do this as businesses, do this as families. and just take advantage of that time and use that time to strengthen yourself, strengthen your family, strengthen your relationships, better yourselves, take care of yourselves. Now you have time to do that.
Make the choice.
We don't have time to do this. We don't have time to do that. Now we have time.
Make the
now
choice.
we have opportunity to do that. Make the choice. Like challenge.
You get to.
Yes, you get to.
You get to do this.
Yeah.
Now you get the opportunity to make those changes and make a difference in those places.
It's awesome. Hey, should we close out with some push-ups or what? Encourage you guys to move?
I don't know that I have room to do push-ups. I'm like backed into it.
But you just got to promise to do them after.
I will do that.
Awesome, guys. Well, we hope that this podcast has been of value to you. Again, we ask you to subscribe, like, share, send this to somebody that you feel like this could potentially impact. This is all brand new. This is episode 3. Topic again today was self-care. All right, guys. Tune in next week where we talk more about relationships. Again, our guest today, who you're going to see more and more, is my brother, Matt Pacheco. Again, I'm Josh.
I'm Chris.
And we are the Uncommon Podcast. Talk soon.